I mean, at a program level, we call it as a sprint. So every 2 weeks, we'll have a demo and we need to demo the product. Like, let us say if my team is working on some feature, they're going to show the working product to all the people and they need to get a sign off saying like, okay, this is what we are looking. So with that approach, like most of the times, what will happen is we really get to know the feedback of the customer at early stages, and it is going to remove the wastage of work resources and something like that. So once this is done, then we go to the next thing. So here we'll have some program backlog refinement, and I told you right, like here, I mean, once we get the what are the high priority items. So let us say that booking site example, booking a flight is my main objective. After booking, like maybe there will be some additional things. Like let us say I told about chatbot integration. So that is like a good to have feature. I mean that is what like a nice to have feature. So first, I mean the primary goal will be building a flight booking software, right? So that priority will be defined by these people, like the chief product manager and product owner. These people decide like what is the value of my product, and then here they will design the solution. So system architect will give a high level architecture and he will tell like this is what my system look like. And then here the development teams come in place. So development, I mean, usually these people are, I mean, if you ask me how many people there in my organization where I'm working currently, we have two chief product managers and we have product owner slash product manager slash program managers. We have around 5 people, and we have two system architects. And if we come here, like we have development teams around, we have 350 people as developers. So I mean, these people are very limited, but these roles are a lot. Like I will tell you, like why we need a lot of developers. So that is where when I was talking about how to build our IT career, right? So most of the people will land into development. So I will show you like what kind of developers we have in a project. Okay. So if I go back to this example, so let us think this is our Expedia website, which will do the travel thing, right? So, I mean, actually, if you look into the screen is generated from some dynamic JavaScript. So most likely they will be using some JavaScript framework. So JavaScript framework is a front-end technology. So whoever try to generate this page, we call them as front-end developers or front-end engineers. So those people will have a key skill set in one of the programming language. So they will be working on JavaScript primarily and HTML and some CSS. And parallelly, I mean, right now in market there are three popular frameworks. One is Angular, and the second one is React, and third one is Vue.js. So right now the UI development is a hard skill. Like it looks like, I mean, it looks like somewhat Java, but the JavaScript framework and we getting that kind of resource is very hard. Like even in my project, we have a lot of problems because like we don't have a dedicated UI developers or who can work on it. So that is a little bit a rare skill, and because like people can easily find issues on this screen. Let us say this round trip is misaligned. Maybe if it is this box is a little bit misaligned, people can easily identify it, and it need a lot of efforts to do this work. So this is, I mean, this is what we call as front-end developers. And there is another thing called back-end developer. So I'll show you that one. So, I mean, right now, whatever the screen you see, this is of more of a UI screen, right? So basically, give me 1 second. So basically, we get everything from the backend. So whatever we present to the user, that is not exactly what is the. I mean, this is little bit only. This is a most of a static page, and we inject the values dynamically from the backend. So we get. I mean, we write a lot of logic, business logic in the background. So when I say business logic, right? So let us think about a couple of scenarios. One thing is, let us say I wanted to book a flight from Seattle to Bali airport. So when we are doing that, there should be a lot of check in the background. So I need to first I need to pull all the available flights, and after pulling that available flights, I need to see whether any seats are available in that flight, right? If I don't have any flights, I cannot show them, right? So that is one possibility. And the second thing is like, I mean, how we are going to book the tickets. So whenever we have the backend ready, so let us say I open the website at 7:40 p.m. I mean, right now I open the website and it is showing there are one ticket is available from Seattle to Bali. At the same time, let us think YN login from other system and he booked that seat. So when we do the ticket, like, I mean, we need to dynamically refresh the page and we need to show the availability as 0, right? So we cannot, I mean, you cannot show as 1. And if we are doing that, like that is a issue I mean, that is a business issue. So that cannot be done. So those things of logic will be handled from the backend. So usually whenever, if you go to any page, right? If you just go to network tab, I mean, if you click on developer tools and go to network tab, you will find a lot of calls here. If you see here, right, like it is saying Expedia.com API. So APIs, I mean, we call it the backend logic as API. So API is nothing but application programmable interfaces. So a lot of people call them as endpoints or APIs. So this is another work. Like, I mean, people, when these teams are very big. Like usually they write with the help of some Java, Spring Boot, or something like or some struts or something, which is a legacy technology. So these teams, I mean, they need a lot of work to do that one. So I mean, even those teams are too big. So I mean, that is another thing. And once we test it out, right? Once we develop the everything, so there will be a testing team, like testers, like they will do a manual testing. So let us say we do the. Let me go to previous screen. So let us think I developed this page. Okay. So there will be a testing team who will be doing the testing. Like what they will do is like they'll see whether every functionality is implemented properly, and they will do a lot of tests and they will do the visual testing and everything. But nowadays the tester scope is getting reduced. Like I mean, we got a new concept with the cloud, which is known as CI/CD pipeline. So it is continuous integration and continuous development. Even the test cases are automated. So let us say whenever they are writing the code for this one, right, they will write unit tests, they will write component tests, they will write end-to-end scenarios. So what it is going to do is like it will, I mean, you can write a test case with automated way. When you add something, you can programmatically check whether it is working or not. So that is where like the testing roles are getting a little bit cut down. So nowadays, like we see most of the developer roles. Like if you go back to 5 years or 6 years back, we used to have a lot of people in the testing teams. So now, if you ask me, in my project, we have around 350 developers, and we have only 6 testers. Like I mean, those 6 testers will be testing some other functionalities, but I mean, in the project wherever I'm working in Boeing, right? In that project, we have mostly the developers who write the test cases. It is everything is automated. So that is one thing we have. And coming back to the skill set, right? Like I talked about the front end developer skill set. So if you go to backend developers, usually they write the APIs. They call it as, I mean, usually they will have skill set in JSON or something. So like even they will have Spring Boot, that kind of knowledge. So yeah, I mean, in some scenarios, some companies will have full stack developers. So who will do both the work? Like, I mean, in my project, we have few teams with both the skill set. So they will write the front end. I mean, front end using JavaScript. When we use Angular, so they write everything in Angular from front end. And in the back end, we have the Spring Boot. So I mean, same resource will write the front end and back end. So that is where we call them as full stack developers. Yeah, that is a hard skill set because basically one single resource is doing both the things. So that is another roles we have. As testers, I told you, right? Testers are not really too much programming. I mean, they will not be having too much skill set. I mean, they will understand how a program works, but they will always try to break the code. So what they will do is like they'll click, double click here, triple click here, and they will see how to break a developer code. Yeah, those. I mean, if you ask me, comparing to software development test engineers will have less pay. I mean, I can say 10% less or 20% less. And parallelly, as I mentioned, like nowadays there is a lot of cutting down in the resource in that area. So, I mean, and the third thing, right? Like right now, we are talking about the application. I mean, the application side, we are saying we'll have front-end developer, back-end developer. Now we need to store all this data, and we need to have someone who take care of my infrastructure. So those roles we call as infrastructure roles. Right now, everything. I mean, most of the projects, even the project where I'm working, that is hosted on Microsoft Azure. So that is on cloud. Like, I mean, we don't have any physical data center sitting in my company, and they don't host that. So we call them as DevOps engineers. I mean, there are multiple roles in that. So DevOps engineers is like they will write a pipeline codes. I will show you the pipeline, like how a pipeline looks, right? So if you see here, like, I mean, this is a typical CI/CD pipeline, which we call it as continuous integration and continuous deployment. So people like, I mean, developers write the code in their local. So local is nothing but whatever the machine you are working on, and all the other environments will be in the cloud. So these things will be on either Microsoft Azure or Microsoft. I mean, it will be in AWS or Google Cloud platform. So what they will do is like, I mean, I'm talking about DevOps here, right? They will create these pipelines. So there will be some automated scripts, which I mean, most of the companies will use Perl scripting or Python scripting. So they will build these kind of things. So local, right? In local, I mean, if you remember, like I was talking about having a GitHub account. So basically, Git tool is used for the version controlling. So usually what they will do on the local is like, let us say myself, I'm a developer. I will try to pull all the latest code. Like I'll see there will be a Git repository. I will pull the code and I will write whatever the changes I want, and I will merge again to the central repository. So the Git is going to control that conflicts. So I mean, the people who are in the DevOps or infrastructure team, they will maintain this entire pipeline. So they will see how we are going to merge the code. So when I say merge the code, like we have 340 developers, they will be developing the code at a time, and we need to all the people are keep on pushing the changes. So let us say I'm working on one screen or one backend logic. I'll be doing my own work on that, and maybe some other developer will be doing that. So after that, like I mean, in usually any project will have a team acceptance environment, and then let us say they have. I mean, in our project we have 17 teams. So all these 17 teams will be having 17 different environments, and they will be integrating the code. And I mean, on each step they will make sure the code is working properly. So when I say code is working properly, right? Let us say I built some 80% of my project, and we are just find some bugs, and we are trying to improve some functionality. So we are adding some new functionality. So whenever we are adding new functionality or trying to fix a bug, we should not break the system. So if you see, I mean, how the Google or how Microsoft, all these companies are operating, is right? They will have a strict process is defined. So they will have it is an integrated dev, and they will have some three or four environments where they can test. We call it as integrated system test (IST), and this is where we give it to users. We call user acceptance test, and we'll have production systems. So I mean, the DevOps people will define this one, and the people in the infrastructure, right? I mean, right now there is a lot of confusion between the DevOps roles, and what do you say, like the infrastructure roles. So again, not only these things, they will maintain the entire servers. So let us say Amazon.com today, they might have 1 million users. So let us think like tomorrow Amazon announces some deals, like some Amazon Prime Day or something. So all of sudden, like the traffic will increase, right? So let us say at this point of time, only 10,000 people accessing this website. And if there is a deal at the time, like you can see enormous growth. So when we say enormous growth, like my backend, whatever my infrastructure need to scale in that way. So it should not throw any errors. So that is one of the design principle we have for any application. So let us think like, I mean, you can think it about something like a building. So when I'm building something, right? Let us think I'm building a big apartment or something. So at that time, I need to think about how many things it can hold. So it can hold like 50 stairs or 20 stairs. We need to define our base like that, right? Like how we are laying the foundation. Similar way, like all the IT systems, we say the system should be scalable, distributed. So what we will do is like whenever we are getting this request, right? So let us say I'm getting 200, I mean, uh, from 10,000 to 2 million at a time. So within 1 hour, the traffic went from 10,000 to 2 million. At that time, what we'll have is like we'll have a client side balances. I mean, we call it as load balances. So based on the number of calls, so my infrastructure, like the backend services are going to distribute it. Like, I mean, they're going to auto scale and they're going to host all the requests. So that is where these people, right? Like whatever I talk about the DevOps people, those people are very crucial. Like we need to manage the environment. So that is also a hard skill right now because of the cloud. I mean, cloud migrations in the I mean, in all the companies and everywhere. So there is more demand for the DevOps engineers. And also, there are other skill sets called network engineers. So, network engineers are mostly they take care of the network. I mean, those are also core skill set, and we have some information security people. So, I mean, whenever we have this, I mean, right now there are a lot of hacking and a lot of attacks on any application, right? So, those people will take care of the application security and infrastructure security. Yeah, but those are very key skills. Like, I mean, even a lot of people will suggest people to go and do some Cisco certifications. So those I mean, those key areas are always there. Like Cisco, they have some networking certifications, and you need to learn how the all TCP layer and every layer works in the reference layers works, and everything you need to understand about DNS and all the advanced topics. So with that, right, like if I go back here, so these development teams include that. So it is like a biggest part in a project. Any project will have tons of people working on it. Even and getting a quality developers is always challenging. So let us say how I mean even Google use Java and most of the normal companies use Java. But Google engineers get paid in millions because I mean when you call as a better developer, they can write a code covering all scenarios. Like I mean, out of 100 scenarios, they will cover 98 scenarios. So if I'm working in a normal company, maybe those developers cannot use the I mean, use the technology in that specific route, or they cannot cover the more scenarios. So it depends like how much practice you have, how you are understanding the concepts and everything. Right? So that is going to define the system. So whether if you are building software for Google, and I mean, if you look into Facebook, Google, those websites are very strong. Like I mean, it never break, or you very rarely you will find any bug on that. Okay, so that is why those people get paid very high. So yeah, that kind of skill set we'll get with more practice and how well you can understand the a technology or any software program that will define our career growth or like everything that. So after that, like I told about the defects. So whenever we find a defect, we have a defect management process will kick in. So what we'll do is like we always will be working on the defects and we'll always keep the system hot. Like let us say, I will tell you the classic defects. So let us say if I'm writing a project for banking. So let us think like people will have online accounts. And let us say if they try to get some money from ATM, let us think like they withdraw some $200 from ATM, and there is some logic issue with that, and it is showing as $2,000 debited from your account. So that is, I mean, that are like a crucial critical bugs. So, I mean, it's there is no system in the world which is 100% accurate. Even Google or anyone have their own issues, but on daily basis, all the software developers, right? So maybe you guys can think two things. So what you can think is like, I mean, the developers, I mean, we have a lot of development teams. Okay. So why, once we are done with development, why those jobs are not going away? So like, I mean, even if the development is done, there is always a new requirement will kick in, and always there is some scenarios to handle, as well as there will be bugs in the existing product. So that is where like the jobs are keep on growing. I mean, both they are keep on growing in one side, and the other way we are creating a new products or new implementation. So that is how we work in IT systems. So coming to the skill set, right? Like if I go back to my previous discussion, so basically these chief product manager, these are somewhat higher roles. If you are a program manager or product manager, you need to have more experience. And some of these roles can be directly we can get it from MBA degree. So let us say if I if I did my MBA education from some top university, I can easily land into product manager or product owner roles. And even system architect also depends. Like if you are a PhD candidate and you did some product on your own, or if you did a master degree and you build something cool, so you can easily get it. So all these roles are directly dependent to the skill set and the level of understanding we have at each level. Okay. So yeah, maybe most of the people start from here, the development teams. I told like these teams are huge, and even development also they will have again they will have a fresher role, and then they'll have a software engineer, senior software engineer, like that. So I mean, basically you need to decide what kind of role you are looking. And sometimes even if the role is, I mean, if you're not able to get into or land into the similar role, we need to plan. I mean, sometimes we'll join into some role, and later on, when we get chance, we can move to other roles. Okay. Yeah, I think that's all I have for how to build IT system enterprise. Now we can take some questions, and I will try to answer whatever the questions you guys have.
Okay, we have already two questions in the chat box.
Mm-hmm.
Let me read it for you. Okay, the first one is from Dr. Nurul Islam from Kanpur Institute of Technology. The question
Mm-hmm.
is how to make better solution from existing way to smart way, as it takes more times and monetary not feasible for third world country. Okay, and the second one is from Gusti Ayumade Srinadi from Udayana University. Her question is, if students of the mathematics study program want a career in information technology, what competencies must be possessed? To achieve these competencies, what students must learn? What types of jobs can be initiated by graduates of mathematics study programs by utilizing information technology? Okay, so
Yeah,
you
sure.
want to answer it now or wait
Yeah.
for more questions? Okay.
Yeah, Vayan, thanks for those questions. Going back to Dr. Narul question, it's really good question. So especially, I mean, even if I talk about India growth in IT sector or like any third world country or like developing countries. So nowadays, the good thing is like we used to have enterprise editions. So if I take Oracle software, they used to charge too much for Oracle software. I mean, it is the only database used to be available in the market. And if you take any software, we used to have that kind of cost involved in it. So nowadays, two things, right? One thing is most of the softwares are openly available. I can open source. So let us say I can get rid of my IT costs. So I can build, I mean, I can choose a Linux server and I can choose some open source softwares. And second thing is like most of the code is already written. So when I talk about GitHub, so if you go to GitHub repositories and if you start looking into it, so most of the people, I mean, not only people are working for money. So there are some open source contributors who are making softwares. Like I mean, a lot of people wrote softwares for hospitals and everything. those are really customizable. So you can take that and you can make it a little changes. You can keep them running. So that is the one thing. And second thing I can say is like coming to, I mean, initially we need to invest any country, right? Like they need to invest some money into it or some talent into it. So slowly it will get matured. Like, I mean, I know like most of the countries might not have that kind of budget allocated to it or something like that. But I mean, if we start looking into some, at least I mean, recently the India success in IT or like even uh, Vietnamese countries or Philippines. I mean, even Philippines or Mexico is also getting into the similar things. Even China, all these countries, right? So when we have a better governance or at least the digital solutions, I believe like that is going to make things to work. Even I remember back in India to get some of the certificates used to take a long time, but with what are the latest implementations, it is pretty much easy to get a passport within 7 days or something like that. Okay. Uh, going to, I hope like Dr. Narul is okay with that. And going back to the second question, right? A student asked about how they can build, I mean, how they can build their career in IT from mathematics department. Yeah, that's really a good question. If I go back to the first thing, right? I mean, when I was starting discussing, right? So at least, irrespective of background, we need to learn some program language. So the good thing for mathematics students is they know about all the statistics algorithms and they know a lot of logic and how all those algorithm works. So they need to do one thing. Like there is a website called I believe Kellogg. Let me see. I think it's Kaggle.com. It is. I think it is owned by uh, Google. I think it is supported by Google. So Kaggle.com have a lot of data sets. So one thing is you can start with some data analyst role because you know mathematics, right? So it is easy to build in that route. The second way we can easily get is like you can learn. I mean, you can start learning some Python and R language, which are used for static analysis. Like it's all I mean, you guys already know about the mathematics background, right? So that is where you can start. Or parallelly, if those roles are not available, you can start with some simple IT role. And once you get into company, you can slowly I mean, you can slowly move to those kind of roles. Like it is not like you need to start with data scientist or data analyst or something like that. So once you step into a company, slowly you can move to other roles. So that is what I can suggest you on that. So parallelly, you need to look into the. I told you right. You can. I mean, anyone can get into IT. It's not like you need to have some IT degree or something. Okay. Maybe you guys can think in that lines, and it will be easy for anyone to get into IT. Yeah. Any other questions we have on top of it? I mean, the second question related to that.
Okay.
Okay.
So, is there any more questions? You can ask
Yes.
Pamsi directly. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Pamsi Gali. I am Lanang from Mathematics Departments.
Hey, hi.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
That's something I want to question about. You talk about this big enterprise, yes?
Yep.
Where you can.
Oh, I think I lost him.
Hello, can you hear me? The connection is not very
Yeah, yeah.
good.
Yeah, maybe you can turn off your video. I think it will give more bandwidth to talk on audio. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Okay. Your presentation is about a big enterprise in a big country, but in Bali there's very little big enterprise. How we do implement that cloud transition if we only have small business, just like they must do everything in full stack.
Yeah, that is, I mean, all the cloud solutions are scalable. I mean, it does not mean like only cloud is going to hold enterprise level or it is only applicable for big companies. So if you look into the cloud offerings, right? So like how they charge for the cloud is like they go with some packages. So they'll have some class one, class two, class three, some premier packages. So based on your usage, they're going to charge. And second thing is like it's not really we need to have that kind of big team, right? So let us say if I take any startup, we won't see more than 20 people. Even you'll see only 10 people. Like even that 10 people also, like I mean, it is not like we'll have a repetitive roles or only one guy will be doing everything. So in those scenarios also like getting into cloud is really helpful. Like I mean, if you see the offerings from AWS, Azure, or GCP, they're encouraging the small companies to get into the cloud, and they're offering with a cheap price strategy. Okay, so you don't really need to pay for what you are not using. That charge is mostly dynamic. Like whatever we are using, we can do that. And coming to the analytics part, right? So we can have a in-house. I mean, it depends again. So sometimes you need to build everything from scratch, but sometimes like the solutions are already available. So let us take some SAP or something. That solution is entirely built. So they called it as like packaged solutions. Just you need to get it and you need to customize a little bit, and that can keep running the company.
Okay, thank you very much. Oh, one more.
Yeah, go ahead.
I- Uh, what is the skill set? Little similar with the question before.
Hmm.
What is the skill set needed to be for our student to become a full stack if they want to? Because we have a computational segment in our department.
Okay. So to become a full stack developer, right? That is like little bit. I told you, right? Like that is a hybrid role. So let us say you should have at least you should know some JavaScript, at least one JavaScript framework. So when I say JavaScript framework, it can be Angular, Vue.js, or some React.js. So people can learn one of them. Plus, on top of it, then should know the core Java. Like I mean, let us think if the backend logic is built on. I mean, most of the company use Spring Boot or some core Java, and some companies use Python as their backend. Okay, so if you know both the languages, right? So it is going to be a full stack development. Like you basically you won't have two roles. Like only one person will be designing the screen, like he will be generating the HTML page based on JavaScript dynamically. And the second thing from backend, I mean, backend logic also built by same person. Like as I mentioned, most of our teams have same thing, but it is little bit hard to guess. I mean, even nowadays, companies also trying to recruit more full stack developers. That is way they can get rid of the IT cost. So let us say instead of hiring one backend designer and one front end developer, they will have one person who will work on both the things.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, even learning database skills is also a mandatory for that. Like, I mean, when you are talking about backend, right? So backend involves the database interactions. So depends on the company. Few people use NoSQL databases, or few companies use relational databases. So you should be knowing like how the data is organized, or data can be stored, and how to retrieve the data. That should be known.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your explanation.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions we have? Yeah, maybe if you have any questions, you can directly email me. So whenever I get time, whether it is related to technology or whether it is on career progression or something. So I will share my personal email and I will share my LinkedIn. So let me share the last 1 minute and I will give that details. Yeah, you can reach me on 1c3934@gmail.com, or you can reach. I mean, you can search for me on LinkedIn. And yeah, if you have any question on building your career, or I mean, having any questions on how software works, at least I can help you on that. And I mean, maybe I'm not going to respond promptly, but whenever I get time in evenings or weekends, uh, I'm going to respond back to your questions. Okay. Yeah, if we don't have any other questions, thank you to mathematics department of Udayana University, and all the organizing committee and whoever, I mean the invitation committee, especially to Hila and Vayan, who helped to I mean conduct this seminar, as well as who did all the collaboration to make it possible, and giving me this opportunity to be a guest lecturer.
Okay. Thank you very much, Kamsi. So, well, before we close our session, we will have photo session. So everybody, please turn on your video. Kepada mahasiswa, silakan di-on-kan sebentar videonya. Oke. Ya. Oke. Ya. Oke. Satu. Oke. Baik, sebelum before we close this session, is there any question from students? Ada pertanyaan
No,
dari
really.
mahasiswa dari luar Universitas Udayana, silakan. Apakah ada pertanyaan? So I think there are no more questions. So on behalf of Department of Mathematics Udayana University, we we thank you very much for the guest lecture, Pamsi. We can see you soon in the future.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Yeah. Also, thanks to all students who attend this guest lecture, both from Udayana and other institutions, and also for Dr. Nurul Islam from Kanpur Institute of Technology, my colleagues, and some other people that I cannot mention one by one. Thank you very much. Thank you, Pamsi.
Yeah, thank you guys. Have a nice rest of the day
Yeah,
and weekend. Bye.
Thank
bye.
you, Pamsi. Thank you, Pamsi. Next
Yeah,
time,
thanks, Nila.
yeah, next time we will make another guest lecture for
Yeah,
another
sure.
topic.
Like, yeah, I love to interact with students and whatever the knowledge I have, I'm trying to share always.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Bye. You guys have a nice weekend.
Okay.